you might be able to tell from the title of the book and from Samak's explanation, the book is covers two areas related to Burma. One is current happenings inside the country, developments since the general elections in 2010 and also again in 2015. But the majority of the chapters of the book are research that has been done about life on the border and focusing on refugees and migrants from Burma living in Thailand. And to give you a sort of a snapshot, there's 3 chapters at the beginning of the book that focus mostly on happenings inside the country, inside Burma. And then the following section mostly focuses on Chiang Mai and the northern part of the Thai-Burma border. And there are 3 chapters about the Shan in particular, including chapters by myself and Busari. Both of us will be presenting our chapters today. And then the last chunk of chapters focus on primarily Muslim migrants from Burma and focusing more on the Nassau section of the border. And Duong Kamon is sort of in between because her research is on female Muslim migrants from Burma but living in Chiang Mai. And then the final 2 chapters of the book are sort of don't fit in any of those categories. One is actually film analysis about a Thai romantic comedy film about a young Thai woman who falls in love with a Burmese migrant worker. And the final chapter is actually a fictional story about life in conflict areas in Burma and in refugee camps. So the authors that we were able to gather here today for the book, there's 3 of us. Busari, who will be presenting first, and then myself and Duong Kamon. And we're also joined by 2 friends who've done work focusing on border issues. One is Nom Tawat, who is going to be sharing his short documentary film with us today, and he's come from Bangkok to be with us. And also Henrik, who has come from Sweden. So he's traveled the furthest. And just for some basic notes before we begin, there's water and more snacks on the table back here if anybody needs anything, and there's restrooms are out here in the front, so don't worry about interrupting anything if you need to step out for a moment. And now I would like to introduce Busari, who's going to be presenting on her research about shifting forms of mobility.
Hello everyone, and thank you for coming to this presentation and this launch today, although it's holiday. I would like to start introducing my topic a bit because it's the output of the combination between my master thesis which I did here at the ASEAN Chiang Mai University on the Chiang migrant in Chiang Mai. I look at their food practices and food waste as a migrant from migrating to Thailand. And the other part is for my ongoing PhD research on at the border between Myanmar province and South Shan state, opposite to Burma, where Kunsa used to occupy the area. And for my PhD thesis, I look at the interaction between migration flows. I usually use mobility flows of the Shan people and also small-scale cross-border trade connected by the Shan. So I look at how these two flows are interacting and how these two flows are shaped by the state formation or state-like entity at the border. So it's the combination between migration flow, commodity flows, and borderland studies. Thank you. So as I will not go through in details about these in this in the volume. But basically, I would like to show how previous works on especially the Shan migration, looking at, and in the book I also categorize how both foreign and Thai scholars did research on the Shan migrants, both refugee or displaced people or economic migrants. And I will not go into details, but I would like to show how these work have been looking at and what are lacked, what still lacked or what still not mentioning in order to keep up with the trend of migration studies. So yeah, and I look at although I use the migration as a kind of key term in the title, but I use the term conceptual of mobility in order to see that people move by many forces, and they not. I think most of the works that I've been mentioning about that have been conducted by foreign scholars and Thai scholars, they tend to look at Shan population in Thailand with a kind of fixed one category. Although somehow they mention that they have interaction between many groups, and the complexity of categorization is also become politicized and turn into legal policy that keep changing. But I look at this movement as a mobility of individual people, individual person, how they move, and what I try to show and to show that people move by what force, by what factors, and I try to dig into that individual trajectory, that how they come, and not only they come, how they go back to the Shan state, to their hometowns, in order to show that people just not moving one way, they move two ways. And so I basically, as I mentioned, you can see that my discipline, which more oriented to anthropological approach, and I usually talk with people and interview people, many more of like a talking, in a very not formal way, not like a focused interview, or like a more conversation. And I would like to start from one person. This girl, she from this township called Mokmai, which is not far, about less than 150 kilometers from the Thai border in Myanmar province. And this kind of thing we learn a lot from many Shan migrants. For example, I quoted her here that you can read faster than I read. Yeah, about 15 years ago, I left my hometown and walked to the Thai border. There were 5 of us, 1 man and 4 women. One of the women had just returned from Thailand to visit her child in the village. On our trip to Thailand, she acted as the leader of the group because she had more experience with the journey. We walked all the way up and down hills and slept for 3 nights in the forest, laying on mats set out on the ground. After arriving in Hong, we took a pickup truck to the Thai borders. At the border checkpoint, I had my photo taken, plus my fingerprints and name recorded in a logbook. During this process, I said nothing to the Thai authorities. That was left to the woman leading the trip, who answered on behalf of the rest of the group. So the more you talk with migrants, the more sorry you get, and you see the kind of pattern. But if you see the pattern, it becomes like a homolistic, which I think individual person has different trajectories to move on, and that's what I am looking at too. That how you move and how you have interact with other factors in order to move, and not everyone can move freely in one way. Some people can take days, some people can take months. So this is that's what I would like to look at, and in order to fill the gap of migration of Shan people or other ethnic group who move to Thailand. I think the previous study have not looked at this process to move, to cross the border, to be able to move. So I just start from my argument before I go to detail later, because I would like to start from my argument and then I support with some life stories and examples. So from what I learned, and I will show you later where I did my research. At least from, I would like to say project myself that this is, I conclude or get some argument on the finding from my research side, where the Shan people are the majority of the border communities and the majority of the migrants, who are both labor migrants and cross-border traders who cross back and forth at the border. So I found that Shan people migration at my border or at my research site is not one way, which I already said, and rather two ways. And in many occasions, they practice repetitive migrations, or the ability to be mobile is quite high and fluid than what we learned before, that people just come and stuck here. No, not moving back. That's not true. From what I learned, they keep going back and forth, but not in 1 year for sure. But there's some period of time that they come and back and move again and return. I also do have a return migration as a pattern too, and it can go to the extent that it becomes circular migration, which I think we learned this before from some of NGO works or report, that people come for some certain period and go back and come again. But in terms of academic research, they're not much touch or look at dig out to show empirical data. Yeah. Okay. And from this, and why this can happen, why people can mobility or migration can become circular or repetitive, and why people are so highly mobile and they can be on the move, even not only the international mobility or migration flows that they can come and back, crossing the international border, or we should say the nation-state border, but within the Thailand, I think their mobility is quite fluid and highly seen. And I would say that after I told people get some story narrative, for many cases I talk for 5 times, get something and put jigsaw puzzle or understand more and more and more. Because only one time, just don't get anything, because people move and the migratory trajectory just so sometimes long period of time, and you don't learn much only one. This is my methodology when I talk to people, so I keep asking things, and sometimes the information just match, not matching, learn, okay, got it, which you need to be passionate to talk and ask the question, the same question, and just you ask this question again, because this is maybe, I don't know that maybe I told this too late, but as I mentioned that I did research, I have been doing research yesterday, that I'm still doing that. Also on the left side, the border, I usually, I was based at one border checkpoint, which is located in Myanmar province in Burma district. And from Burma district, this border is located on the mountain, which is about 900 meter level from the sea. And on the right side, this is quite it's a closer look of the border. see the gray color that's for Thailand, and above this is a graph that I also use for other purpose. So that there's numbers of 1 to 3 until 9. Please forget this at the moment, but I just want to show the route they use to pick the people, both Chan migrant and cross-border trader use. This is the area I call South Shan State. So this is some picture that it's unfortunate that I didn't put this in the books, and the books quite like a very text content. I just look at not many pictures, only one graphic from my chapter that I showed the map that I showed before. It's a bit like a rhyme. yeah. This is like a make it. Yeah. So this is they want to show the picture that how they move, how they migrate to Thailand, and how they migrate back, move back to the Chan state. And at my research sites, they usually use pickup trucks, both sides, the Chan state side also pickup truck. There is no state regulated public transportation, so people became the truck owner, but then there's some like an informal system to get your vehicle registered, which I'm not going to talk about because it's not put in my paper. And on you see on the right side, that's in Chiang Mai, where I also visited myself. Yeah? And on the left side, because if I go back to the last slide, there would be Salang River, and coming to this checkpoint, you have to cross the border by a ferry. And on the left side, on the bottom left, this is the picture of the ferry crossing the Salang River. And on the right side, this is now you already crossed to Thailand, and you see that it's more systematic in terms of you see the yellow are painted yellows, the truck are painted yellows, and in order to, because this is the decoration made by the Transport Ministry of Thailand, and the public transportation for transport trucks, like it must be painted in yellow, and then there's some regulation that the driver have to follow, which not the same case or similar to on the in Chan state side, that although that the owner of the must get your vehicle registered, but there's some certain rule that not rigid or seriously as Thai government imposed. But anyway, just like to show some picture. Okay, and then now, as I already mentioned that why people, if you ask the question why people can be so mobile, why can people move across the border, national border so smoothly, I would say that in those days we learned that okay, people from Myanmar or Burma have faced difficulties, in finding jobs, or and the problem from national conflict and economic impact that affect on the individual life. But I think for last few decades, I would say that the mobility of people coming from Myanmar to Thailand are seen, are highly seen, and can be more possible because of the cross-border flow and network that have developed from the last decades, which I cannot go so far. But then, for example, okay, yeah, okay, I should go to some of the case studies that I talk to. Sorry that I want to be gender biased because this occasionally are women, but okay, because maybe I was a woman and then so I talk with them more easily. So, but the first one, her name is Nakila. Nakila was 35 years old when I was interviewing her, and she told me how her life become like today from 20 years ago, back around 1980, she was a long-distance trader during the ethnic conflict at the border. And at that time, Unsa was rising in power. And she became a long-distance trader by accidentally, by accident because she was just local farmer. And she saw that at that time there were so many population who were militias, and then we would fetch out our products, homegrown products, some vegetables and so many things. And she turned to be a long-distance trader, traveling very far away from hometown to the conflict zones. And when you come to the conflict zone, which had no clear-cut demarcation between Thailand and Myanmar, in those days you just cross the border easily. You might encounter some ranger or some patrolling soldier, but this can be very this could be very accomplished easily if you could hand in some fees or some gift or something that that made you be able to cross the border easily. And then when she was able to cross the border and she became moving around the country, being a labor migrant. And for some certain period, she said, okay, I had enough capital in terms of savings, so she came back home. She came back to the border and settled in the Thai side and became cross-border trader until now. This is one large story that shows how form of mobility helped her to be able to migrate and live on the Thai side. And another case also a woman, and Nangso migrated to Thailand about 10 years earlier, and which I saw that this the strength of the cross-border network that have been built before in the decades beforehand that helped her to be able to cross the border even more easily. And then once you were able to move across the border easily, she also could move around the country so smoothly, and through network, through support of the earlier generation of migrants. And what I see very interesting is how she have moved back and forth quite smoothly and with the strong cross-border network. And she told me that when she was 19 years old, she moved to Thailand. She crossed the border to Thailand through the network of cross-border network. And then when she was 21, she was pregnant and she decided to go back home because she wanted to make money and she didn't want to keep her child with her in Thailand. So she went back home and had a child delivery she already had delivery in Thailand. She took her child back to the transit and stayed in transit for 2-3 years. And when she was 24, she said, okay, I need to make money again. So I went back to Thailand and started to become a labor migrant again and working in many factories. And when she was 31, she said, okay, I need to settle, I need to have her own business. So she returned home and started to buy a pickup truck and become a cross-border trader. And the last case, this is even more fascinating. She was 21. Her name is Jam Kham. Jam Kham didn't finish high school when she was 17. And I think she failed or dropped out. And then she said, okay, many people went to Thailand. Now you see that the strong cross-border network and became even more stronger because of the earlier generation that built up this network. And so people like her, which was very young at that time, saw that this is very easy to move, to go. I said, she set her foot and then use the network that earlier generation use. And within 2-3 years, she went to work in Thailand for a few months, and she decided to quit because of hard work. And she went back home and she finished high school. And then started to nothing very was interesting at home, so she moved to Thailand again and worked in Thailand by the support of her relative who was her aunt and her mother. Her mother was in the CAS, but when she told me the first time when she was so tired to work in Thailand, she just called her mother to pick her up in Chiang Mai. Okay. That's okay, I should finish soon. Yeah, I think I keep repeating what I want to show and what my arguments are. And I should say thank you.
Okay, we decided that we're going to save all of the questions and discussion period for after all 5 presentations. So we're going to move along now with my presentation. And so with Busarins, we learned about forms of mobility, routes, and the interesting idea that it's often not a one-way migration from Shan State to Thailand, but it can be circuitous and 2 ways. And my presentation is going to focus on the Thai policies that the Shan migrants encounter once they arrive in Thailand. And here we go. So my name is Garrett Costin, and some of you might know me from Burma Study Center. I've also been working sort of part-time or freelance as an editor with the Faculty of Social Sciences here at Chiang Mai University for a couple years. And this presentation, if anybody attended the International Burma Myanmar Studies Conference last year in Chiang Mai, my presentation might be familiar to you. I'm sorry. I know Clemens was there. So you can let me know if you've noticed any changes. But so the work that I'm going to be presenting today utilizes a few different socioeconomic theories to evaluate Thai policy approaches to the management of transnational migrants and refugees. And I use unrecognized refugees and migrants from Shan State living in Thailand as my focus. And I consider this a piece of social justice and policy analysis that's informed by research more than direct research, and that comes from my my academic background in social work. I completed my graduate degree at the School of Social Work at the University of Washington just last month. So, and of course, this is just an overview of my chapter, and the full essay is included in the book, and I hope that my presentation today will pique your interest in reading not only my chapter, but the whole book. So first, to give a little bit of background about the status of global migration today, it's been shown that global migration is become increasingly common in the recent decades, mainly due to communication technologies, transportation, and cultures that facilitate mobility. There's internet and television that makes people interested and aware of more possibilities and different ways of living that leads to increases in migration. Of the entire population of the world, about 3% live outside of their country of origin or are migrants, as many of us in this room today are. And to me, it's surprising that we're just a group of among 3% of the entire world. But of that 3% of the world's population that are migrants, about 15% of that number, or 34.4 million, are refugees. Those who have fled disasters, war, and persecution in their native lands in search of stability and peace. And so the remaining 85% of migrants include what I would term as lifestyle or advantaged migrants, people who migrate of their own volition. And many of the case studies in Busarin's chapter are from this category, economic migrants, those who have left their homes to escape unemployment and poverty and to seek economic opportunities. So a little bit about me. I've been the director of Burma Study Center here in Chiang Mai since 2009. working on migrant education, social welfare, and capacity building initiatives. And in 2014, I actually relocated back in the US for my graduate school, and I began volunteering with an organization called Northwest Communities of Burma in Seattle. And my research interest was really piqued by my volunteer work, actually teaching a summer school program for youth, resettled refugee youth from Burma living in Seattle. And mainly my work here in Chiang Mai was with Shan people from Burma. And when I got to Seattle and started working with Northwest Communities of Burma, my students were mostly Karen, Chin, and Karenni. And I loved meeting people from different areas of Burma that I had very little interaction with, but I really missed Shan people. Shan people were the ones that I had the most connection with and experience working and learning with. And so it made me a little bit sad also to realize that it is not possible for the vast majority of Shan refugees to have the opportunity to resettle in Western countries. And that's why I was not working with Shan people in Seattle. So this research, my chapter in the book, actually started as an assignment in my social work program. And I believe that migrants and their descendants, all types of migrants, must be of central concern to social workers because they are often subject to discrimination and human rights abuses both pre and post-migration. And social workers are uniquely trained and well-placed to identify the needs, shape discourses of settlement and integration, and contribute to policy development. And this is informed in part by a section of the preamble of the National Association of Social Workers Code of Ethics. So the questions that I was really interested in exploring included: why are Shan refugees in Thailand not eligible for UNHCR protection and third country resettlement, as are most other ethnicities from Burma? And also, is the Thai government's assertion that the Shan in Thailand are economic migrants rather than asylum seekers valid? We know from research, including Busarines, that many Shan in Thailand do not have a valid claim to be considered as refugees. Many are economic migrants who can travel relatively easily back and forth, but the Thai government's assertion is that that is the accurate description of all Shan migrants, which I wanted to explore a little bit further. And also I wanted to look at how different socio-economic ideologies can inform evaluations of Thai policy towards the Shan. So I'm going to go through this section relatively quickly because I have less time today than I did at other times when I've given this presentation, and it's in the book. But and I think many of you might already know a bit about the history of Thai and Shan and the intersecting cultural and linguistic similarities. But historically, the Thai-Shan border was very flexible and porous. Also, as Busarine described, it was not demarcated well. There were no formal border formalities basically to cross the border. Also, several centuries ago, parts of Shan state were considered part of the Lana Kingdom, as mostly now Lana Kingdom is considered northern Thailand, but it actually historically consisted of a much larger area. And so because of this history and the close intersections between Thai and Shan culture, it's allowed for the development of unique concepts of territory, nation, and relations that for someone from the West is very foreign. It's hard to grasp that it can be so fluid because it's very foreign from situations in the West. So in trying to evaluate whether the Shan in Thailand should be considered as simply economic migrants, as the Thai state would have us believe, or as refugees, I looked at a lot of research primarily that was produced by, we can say, more activist scholars. A lot of research reports by NGOs working on development issues and issues of peace and civil society in the border and inside Burma. But what has been very well established is that millions of individuals and families have left Burma since the Burmese military took over in 1962, more than 50 years ago, and especially increased in 1988 after the pro-democracy uprising in Burma known as 8888. And that was when the government in Burma pretty much shifted from military control to direct authoritarian military dictatorship headed by Tan Shui and his cohorts. And the Burma army specifically began targeting eastern Shan state in 1996. And this was, there was increased militarization throughout the entire country in order to allow the military to maintain its rule and in attempt to defeat insurgent groups. But Shan state was specifically targeted due to its relatively strong resistance forces, a large number of Shan insurgent armies, and also Shan state's abundance of natural resources, and partly as rewards to the United Wa State Army after it signed a ceasefire agreement with the central government. More territory in Shan state was allotted to the Wa population rather than the Shan, and Shan were displaced, as we can see. A disproportionate number of Burmese military bases were established in eastern Shan state that led to the destruction of over 1,000 villages and over 300,000 villagers being displaced between 1996 and 2003. And the majority of those displaced Shan villagers were relocated to in adjacent northern Thailand, primarily Mae Hong Son and Chiang Mai provinces. So this is really a difficult or impossible question to answer succinctly whether the Shan in Thailand should be considered economic migrants or refugees. It's really kind of it goes back to the idea that we can't categorize succinctly, and we need to hold space for there being multiple possibilities and variations. We know that northern Thailand has had a long history of accommodating Shan visitors and seasonal workers, and that has led to established social networks, economic networks, and transportation networks. Also, as Shan activists in the late 80s and then villagers in the 1990s sought refuge in Thailand, it likely did not occur to them, or they were not aware that they could formally access asylum and refugee status. They had no way of knowing the processes and benefits of doing so. And that is in contrast to Burmese political activists and student soldiers who primarily migrated from urban areas in Burma to urban areas such as Bangkok and central areas in Thailand, which is geographically much closer to UNHCR and other offices such as the International Rescue Committee. Those organizations had much easier access and ability to register people from central Burma, and primarily Burmans rather than ethnic people, and make a much stronger case for the need for refugee protection than did ethnic groups that were in other areas of Thailand. So this also part of what informed my chapter is a research that was done by Burma Study Center here in Thailand with Shan migrants 2 years ago in 2014. And I don't have time to describe the research so much, but you can find it on our website. But basically two interesting things that we found were that of the young migrants that we surveyed that participated in this research, over 83% of the Shan migrants said that they planned to return to Burma to live permanently. And the majority indicated, more than 50% indicated that they thought that they would return to Shan state or other areas of Burma to live within the next 3 to 4 years. But then another question asked if the participants believed that they would be safe personally if they were to return to their home today. And it was split pretty evenly. 47% said no, they did not think that they would be safe if they returned home, and 53% said yes. So what this indicates, the first point sort of indicates that that the migrants see themselves as short-term migrants working to save money here, accessing education and development opportunities, and sending money back home to their families, but only on a short-term basis, believing that they would return home in the next couple of years. But the second point indicates that there's still a widespread fear of persecution and violence were they to return home, which makes the case that they should be considered refugees. So the results were really inconclusive on the question of what category should they go in, as the results could be interpreted either way. So the current situation, the Thai government current policy towards Shan migrants is that everybody of Shan ethnicity living in Thailand are economic migrants who are linguistically, religiously, and culturally similar enough to assimilate easily into Thai society rather than refugees. And the UNHCR and other major international aid organizations have not, in my opinion, sufficiently pressed the Thai government for fear of inciting Thai intolerance for their work with other refugees on the border. They don't want to risk having their access to other ethnic groups, other vulnerable populations compromised because of pushing against Thai policy towards the Shan. And there's good reason for this fear. In 2004, the Thai government under Thaksin Shinawatra temporarily suspended the screening of all asylum seekers in Thailand for a period. And so it's because of pushback at the time from the UNHCR. So that caused international organizations to basically proceed with caution. So basically, I conceptualized it as there being two camps of thought about the question of Thai policy towards Shan migrants. One are critics of Thai policy who are primarily human rights groups, small-scale international aid organizations, and academics who would advocate for a more compassionate and inclusive policy towards the Shan. And the proposals of this group would be to increase advocacy on behalf of the Shan's rights to greater protections and opportunities, such as formal refugee recognition and protection and opportunities for resettlement to third countries, to allow the Shan to become, this is the one that I just said, and then also to increase pro-refugee rights pressure on the UNHCR to counter anti-asylum seeker pressure of the Thai government. The other camp would be the proponents of Thai policy, primarily those affiliated with the government-affiliated groups in the Thai Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which sets the policy and is charged with seeing it out. And there, you can read some of their major points here. Especially interesting to me is that they see that were they to recognize even some Shan migrants as legitimately having the right to be considered refugees, that it would lead to an uncontrollable flow of asylum seekers in Thailand, threatening national security and economy. And this goes into sort of the popular imagination or depiction of migrants from Burma as being a threat to Thailand's security and independence, basically, and that's covered well in another chapter in this book by Chairat. Also, another factor in this is that limits on immigration to Thailand are necessary to maintain positive economic and political ties with Burma. In all of the previous decades of military dictatorship in Burma, including the heavily militarily backed government of Thein Sein from 2010 to 2015, it would have been embarrassing for the Burmese government to have more Burmese migrants, more migrants from Burma coming into Thailand than not. And it's yet to see what the current National League for Democracy government would feel about that. But certainly it is better for the sort of public appearances of Burma that they don't have massive outflows of migrants and refugees being welcomed into Thailand. So basically the proposals of this group is just to maintain the status quo of Thai policy in order to protect Thai policy objectives and national security. So getting into the analysis that's covered in much more depth in the chapter, I used socioeconomic ideologies from different schools of philosophy that are they've mainly been formulated to address questions relating to the role of the state in terms of national markets and citizens of one particular country rather than internationally. But I felt that expanding the parameters with which we use these ideologies as lenses to analyze questions related to transnational citizens and issues between neighboring countries, that it could possibly produce helpful frameworks to better understand contentious issues in our increasingly globalized and interrelated society. So, so in the chapter, I use different theories. The first group are more social democratic theories, and the first one that I go into is egalitarian liberalism that was put forth by John Rawls. And some of the main tenets of egalitarian liberalism is that all people in society should collaborate from equal positions of power to design a truly egalitarian society with equal liberties for all and socioeconomic equality. So if you're a Bernie Sanders supporter in the US, you would probably agree with the tenets of this. Egalitarian liberalism also prioritizes equality, fellowship, and equal distribution of goods, and it's in line with basically with what international refugee NGOs are calling for Thailand to allow in regards to unrecognized refugees. And there's Iris Young is a philosopher, a political philosopher, who really developed something that is much more practical in terms of egalitarian liberalism, and I just refer to it as expanded egalitarian liberalism because she didn't put forth her own name for this philosophy. But basically it uses the tenets of egalitarian liberalism, but with an increased focus on recognizing forms of institutionalized domination and oppression rather than unfair distribution of resources as being the primary impediments to social justice. And it lessens the focus on distribution of material goods and tangible resources, and instead focuses on realizing the importance of more abstract assets such as rights, opportunities, and dignity as forms of capital or social capital. So from the other side, the other group of ideological frameworks that I looked at included utilitarianism, which was conceptualized by the British philosopher Jeremy Bentham, and some pertinent descriptions of utilitarianism include the quotes that I have up here. One is that morality lies in maximizing happiness for the greatest majority of people possible, even if it comes at a severe cost to a minority. So if there's 100 people on a boat who are starving and they could survive by killing one or two of them, that is socially just because a majority of the people, 98 out of 100, would be happy, and it's just, we have to be practical and recognize that it's just a minority who are going to suffer. And also the next quote here is that in deciding what laws or policies to enact, a government should do whatever will create the most happiness for a community as a whole. So the way that I look at this in terms of the Shan in Thailand are that if there are benefits to the Thai economy through the exploitation of Shan economic migrants who are not allowed to claim refugee status or resettle outside of Thailand, this is completely acceptable and just because far more people benefit from the strong Thai economy than the number of migrants who are exploited. And then liberalism and neoliberalism, basically it's free market-focused economic political systems that most countries in the world now today follow, and these are in line with the current Thai policies. One description of the way that liberalism and neoliberalism look in practical implementation are that human well-being can best be advanced by liberating individual entrepreneurial freedoms and skills within an institutional framework characterized by strong private property rights, free markets, and free trade that seeks to bring all human action into the domain of the market. And so it's interesting that neo theory could actually be used to argue that it would be against the best interest of unrecognized refugees from Shan State to reside in UNHCR protected refugee camps along the Thai-Burma border, because even for the time that it would take for Shan refugees to be processed for possible resettlement, that would be a period when they would be prohibited from participating in markets of either the host or origin country, so it would be against their best interest. And also, neoliberalism could be used to support the right of Thai employers to take advantage of vulnerable laborers, and it basically upholds the Thai government's right to refuse to extend any form of social welfare benefits to its own citizens, much less to migrants and refugees from other countries. So basically my conclusion or my argument, my position is that Thailand's policies on Shan asylum seekers are discriminatory, exploitive, and self-serving for the Thai state, and that Thai policy perpetuates much of the poverty, inequality, and abuse that has driven many of the Shan to flee their homeland in the first place. Policies that would allow social justice and equity for the Shan as members of society who are vulnerable to oppression should be prioritized and enacted, and the UNHCR and other international aid organizations should have access to interview and process migrants who seek to claim refugee status and protection. It's interesting to note that Thailand is of course a member of the United Nations. It is not a signatory to the conventions on refugees, the 1951 UN Convention relating to the status of refugees, nor its 1967 protocol, which means that basically Thailand is a member of the UN, but it doesn't have to follow the suggestions or the advice, the policies of the United Nations as a whole as it regards to refugees. But I would argue that the UN should do more to basically encourage Thailand to adopt the policies. So the work to be done, or the next steps, basically as I see it, are to increase awareness, understanding, and compassion for all migrants from Burma who are unable to access refugee protections and resettlement opportunities. Also to increase Thai respect for the rights and dignity of migrant workers, and contribute to education and capacity building for Shan migrants in order to allow them to make informed decisions for themselves. Would they rather continue to be regarded as economic migrants who have more mobility and economic opportunities, or would it be in their best interest to gain refugee status and resettlement opportunities? Also, further work could be done in considering or developing mechanisms for advocacy for which the UNHCR could increase its attention and support for unrecognized Shan refugees in Thailand. So that's the end of my presentation. And but I just wanted to say, so one thing I realized as I was putting the final touches on this together were that several of these objectives for the future, including increasing awareness, understanding, compassion, and informing policies or activities that would increase advocacy efforts, can be informed by the book. So I look at our publication of this book and the work that's gone into it as contributing to some of the outcomes that I would like to see. So I'm really grateful to be a part of it and glad that you're all here. Final formal presentation before the documentary screening, and then the discussion is going to be by Henrik, and I'm going to let you know how to properly pronounce his surname and also introduce himself a bit. His work is actually not in this volume that we're focusing on today, but we wanted to include his work because it's definitely related, and it's sort of an opportunity to have him share his work with us while he's here in town. So can you...
All right. My name is Henrik Møller. I'm from Denmark, but I'm doing a PhD in Lund University in Sweden at a sociology department, but my background is in anthropology, so I studied my bachelor and master in University of Copenhagen. And yeah, as you said, my research is not on the Thai-Myanmar border, but on the China-Myanmar border. So I do fieldwork in Rili, in the Derhong prefecture of Yunnan province. So it's just on the border with the Shan state, the city of Muse. And today I'm going to talk about Rohingya. So it's kind of, I expect it's going to be a chapter in my dissertation. I wrote the paper for a conference here a few weeks ago. So I think it's going to be a case study. And if you're interested in the paper, you can write me an email. So actually my project is about jade trade. So I mainly study Chinese jade traders and jade carvers, and I use jade as a kind of lens through which to examine both economic processes and also kind of cosmology or ontology, if you will, in China. But this talk is about Rohingya, particularly about one man, so it's kind of a case study, very narrow, extracted from around 10 interviews, some video recordings and some online chats with this particular guy for a few years of chatting when I worked in Rili. So the main two questions I'm asking in this paper is how we understand configurations of ethnic identifications, conflicts and alliances in multi-ethnic settings, and really is, we could characterize it as a multi-ethnic setting. So for instance, we could ask what are the relations between forces sustaining ethnic alliances and those sustaining ethnic conflicts. So I will get back to this later, but it's clear that in my fieldwork that some of the conflicts from Myanmar are kind of following migrants into China. But on the other hand, it seems that the jade trade is also forging alliances. It's kind of characterized by alliances between different ethnic groups. I'll get back to this. And the second question I was perhaps mostly interested in when I started with the paper is related to the main topic of my thesis, how we can kind of conceive of the non-human jade, or in this case I will talk about dogs and fighting cocks. Which role does the non-human play in human conceptualizations, in this case of ethnicity, and more broadly in the construction of social symbolic orders? In this case I'm kind of inspired by new kind of theory developments, especially in anthropology within the past 10 years, where also in sociology for that matter, where there's kind of a renewed interest in rethinking the relationship between nature and culture, where we could say that perhaps from the 80s and onwards, one dominant paradigm has been like hermeneutical paradigm, where we kind of see the non-human as kind of generic matter for cultural interpretation. So one of the issues here is in new literature is a kind of renewed interest in the particular properties of the non-human, and also the kind of assemblages and configurations of co-configurations of human and non-human. So in that sense, perhaps it's a little bit speculative and it's a first draft, but I kind of hope to develop this idea. As I mentioned, my methods, it's mainly in-depth interviews, and in the way that I wrote the paper, I gave a lot of space for direct quotes from this particular informant. I was a bit inspired by a paper by Louis Vacang, which discusses the social and economic practices and strategies of a hustler in urban America. What's going on? he also allows the informant to speak, so to say, and this is kind of the ambition I have in that paper also. And also he discusses the in-depth interview as a way for a certain, let's say, marginalized characters to reflect upon themselves. And in this case, with my interviews with this guy, Noah, these reflections both concerned his ethnicity as a Rohingya and the predicament of Rohingya, but also for him to construct a story about himself. This is important when we talk to people, I think. He also had a lot to say about himself, and usually, of course, these are good things. We probably know that when we do interviews. And I think because some scholars say that, oh, we are now reaching, it's an interview society. This Gubrium and Holstein talk about that. I would say that this particular guy is not part of any interview society. He was not used to being asked at least by foreigners about anything. So this is a kind of a dialogue that happens in fieldwork that many of us probably are familiar with. So just to introduce this guy, he's called Noah. We called him Noah in the paper. So he fled the Arakan state as a teenager after a series of fights, which I describe quite detailed in the paper. He first went to Bangladesh, eventually went to Saudi Arabia and worked for some years there, and eventually he came back and found his way up to Reeling. And now because of his family networks, his uncle is a quite successful trader and has been in Reeling for a lot of years. So he has contacts with KIA, Kachin Army, and he receives stones from Kachin. And usually those stones are not taxed as, jade stones are not taxed as heavily as Myanmar government stones. And usually they are smuggled into Reeling. So that means that they can offer a relatively good price for them. So another thing I'll also get back to, kind of the ethos of Noah is his Rohingya ethnicity is obviously very tied to Islam and to being a good Muslim. So the way to talk about being a good Muslim is to talk about people not being good Muslims. And he had many examples of that. People who sold drugs or took drugs, drank alcohol, wearing jewelry, gambling, and so on and so forth. And of course he did nothing of that, but of course he did. I'll get back to that. So there's around 15,000 Rohingya people living in Reeling, according to themselves. I couldn't get any government official numbers because they were not registered. But according to most Rohingya I talked to, and it seems quite true, and they reside in the old Jade Bazaar in the northern part of Reeling. In the paper I discuss a little bit about the background of Rohingya, but I'm sure many of you also know about that, so I'll not talk too much about it. One thing I was a little bit surprised about was, this is an interview, was when Noor told me that the KIA had apparently invited Rohingya to come and fight with them in the Kachin state. That was quite a surprise, and I later went to Kachin and talked to people there and also an official there, and he said, no way, it's impossible, because the Kachin are also allied with the Rakhine army, so he said it cannot be possible to have an official alliance with Rohingya. So whether it's true or not, or maybe it's not the point, but one of the issues here was that Noor certainly identified with the cause of the Kachin, and that was of course based on their experience of antagonism from a Buddhist majority in Myanmar. Another interesting thing from this interview was when he says, he wants to tell everybody that he's not a Rohingya, he's a Bengali. And Bengali, of course, is the dominant kind of discriminative. Hello? Yeah, okay. Discriminative official label of the regime. Now it's softened a little bit into Muslims residing in Arakan State or something like this. But anyway, this quote is kind of interesting because on the one hand he talks about a fake Muslim, so apparently to be a Rohingya you kind of have to have two Muslim parents, but on the other hand being Rohingya here also seems to depend on the actions, your bravery and willingness to actually sacrifice blood and kind of go to war for the cause. So I have a long kind of description of what led Noor to flee the Arakan state, and basically it was a series of fights with peers, Buddhist peers. One of the things that happened that he says is that, well, they come and they throw human feces on our mosques and on our homes. So this is kind of implying that, take one of the most profane matter and import it into one of the most sacred domains. So this is kind of maybe a case of Mary Douglas's matter out of place, we could say. But this is clearly kind of very transgressive act, and that's why I say, we are humans, we are not animals. So something is definitely were at stake in these fights, which were not just teenagers fighting, but it was ingrained ethnic hostilities. So eventually Noor went to Really, and this is just to show the map here. Really has been developed especially since the 1990s as a kind of a border trade hub, as part of local regional strategies, political strategies, which is very much based on the cross-border trade. And as many other places that Chinese government want to develop, they created a kind of a special economic zone, a border trade zone, and then it's believed that from here the regional development is going to expand. This is just it's a map I took from a very excellent report published last year by Global Witness about the jade trade. Very kind of extensive piece of work. And it has some interesting figures here, and like we see 50 to 80% of the jadeite, the most precious form of jade from Myanmar, is smuggled across the border. And this is also the impression I have from the interviews I did in Really, that this is at least 50 and probably closer to 80. So it's a huge, vast, informal economy. They do a calculation where they set the value of sales, jade sales in Myanmar in 2014 at 31 billion US dollars. So it's an enormous amount of money, about half the official GDP that year. This is just to show, this is one stone of one of my informants, a Chinese guy, and they were setting the price of this one at 640 million yuan. They hadn't sold it at this time. They sold a similar one for 600 million to a Shanghai investor. So it's just to show that the money is immense in this kind of business. So mobility is very important for jade traders, but most Rohingya just have like a border pass, so they need to go to Musa every week to have it stamped. This is a process that kind of subjects them to blackmail, interrogation, so it can actually be a kind of a dangerous process if the border guards kind of determine that they are Rohingyas. It can be a problem for them, but in most cases they have to pay money. So that's why many of them, if they have business in Musa, they go through this like unofficial. This is basically just a hole in the border fence, and many Chinese also use these holes. There's some underground casinos in Musa, so when they go there, they use these holes. This quote is from an interview where Noor talks about him and his uncle going to Pakan to buy jade. So it's just to show that there is a strong conception of fear and of danger. This is the border area around Leita. And again, Noah kind of expresses his sympathy, friendship with the Kachin people, and here he even suggests that Kachin are Muslims. So, well, again, it's not the point if he's right or wrong, but it shows the sympathy again that he feels with Kachin people. But on the other hand, in this border area, he says he's very confused about people there. And one of the main kind of skills as a jade trader is exactly to create ethnic alliances and to know who are the people you're dealing with, especially in this area, because there's many different groups. Some of them are also kind of like criminal groups. So you kind of have to be good at categorizing people. And here he's very scared because he doesn't know exactly who the people are in this area. So mobility, even though it's officially restricted, officially Rohingya should only stay inside of Really, but Noah still travels throughout the Yunnan province, and this interview is about him spending 6 months in Kunming, waiting. So waiting is kind of like an important feature of the jade trade, especially when you're dealing with the big stones, which in turn can give you a high profit also. So here he says that the price will double from Really to Kunming, and again when you transport jade from Really and to cities like Shanghai or Beijing, you can earn a vast profit. So there's kind of a simple form of capitalism. You take a good and you move it to another place, but it's also when you cross national borders, at least even local borders, there's also police checkpoints within the Yunnan province. You kind of take a risk, but the potential profits are quite high. I'll just skip this one. It's just like to show a hierarchy of the different kinds of occupational groups within the Rohingya community. I guess I don't have so much time left. All right. Okay, so this is just to show it's one trade situation where Noah is in the Wa state. This is just to show that at this point he is dealing with 5 different ethnic social groups. So it's just to emphasize that in the jade trade kind of stimulates these alliances and is preconditioned on the ability of creating these alliances. Jade and drug trades, drugs and jade kind of, as far as I could figure out, follow the same routes. Noah talked a lot about other Rohingya men, not himself, who were smuggling drugs from the Wa state. And, well, it's not for me to evaluate, but anyway, it's just to show that these routes and even perhaps the materiality is kind of connecting, you know. Some people say they hide drugs inside of hollow jade stones. So the last case I just want to go through here is about fighting cocks and dogs. So Noah was a very avid cockfighter. He bred fighting cocks, and he kind of expressed this almost symbiotic relationship with his fighting cocks. Those any anthropologists here, you probably have read Clifford Geertz's discussion about the Balinese cockfight, and I could kind of recognize a lot of things in the relationship between Noah and his fighting cocks. So in a sense, he's kind of distinguishing his fighting cocks on their personal characteristics and even on their ethnicity. So in that sense, he kind of have to assume a non-human perspective in order to understand the needs and the characteristics of his fighting cocks. So I have to go through this. One day Noah called me, and he was keeping some of his master fighting cocks outside of Really in a construction ground of his cousin, a Rohingya man. Interestingly, they were building a house there, and the crew of workers were Buddhist, Burma Buddhist people, but they seemed to have a good relation. But Noah called me and said, "Oh, you have to come with me." And we went there, and he kind of reenacted an attack from the previous day, where 3 dogs had attacked dug underneath the fence and attacked the dogs and the hens, killed some of them. So he was very, very sad, and he kind of describes almost kind of dogs which are acting against their natural inclinations as dogs. He says that dogs don't eat chicken, but these dogs are like wolves. After he tries to attack the dogs, but then suddenly they are very smart, they pretend to be good dogs. So they kind of have extraordinary kind of intelligence and capabilities. But eventually, so they kill one dog and the other two escapes. And then I asked Noah, so where did those dogs come from? And I could kind of see that he didn't really know, but then he said, oh, they're Burmese dogs. Oh, okay, of course. And then if it kind of made sense, because he said, yeah, in the village a little further up, there's a group of Burma Burmese who came to make trouble with my cousin. He came and abused them and say, you bloody Muslim, and kind of hurled abuses at them. So he says, I think those dogs come from up there. It was pretty clear that he didn't actually know where the dogs came from, but it kind of made sense when you analyze it. A final thing was that he told me at this time that the Buddhist workers left because they were afraid that, because the conflict was escalating inside Myanmar, so they were afraid that the Rohingya would attack them. So this kind of, in this situation, we can see how it's almost as if the intention of the Burmese people are instilled in the dogs, so they are kind of acting out the vicious intention of the Burmese people. And it's here that I kind of want to maybe expand a little bit on the Lévi-Straussian, like the totemism analysis, where maybe it doesn't matter in Lévi-Strauss's analysis, you know, if it's also in Clifford Geertz's later discussion of the Balinese cockfights, it doesn't really matter which kind of animal it is in a sense, but here we have a very clear idea that the dogs are the predators, and they are almost supernatural predators. They are like wolves. So we have the Burmese wolves attacking the prey, the Rohingya fighting cocks and hens. So I think in that sense it's kind of, we can say that the biological potentials of the dogs versus the fighting cocks, they matter as a kind of technology of imagination that allows Noah to visualize the inter-ethnic relationships between Rohingya and Burma Burmese. So I think, yeah, to sum up, we can say that the jade trade, on the one hand, it fosters inter-ethnic alliances, and in that sense kind of is a ground for social integration of Rohingya in China to a certain level. But on the other hand, we also have kind of these inter-ethnic conflicts, in a sense, spilling over the border or following the migration. And also because jade is this kind of vast informal economy, it also has a potential of, you know, Rohingya attacking each other, which was the case a few months later, where Noah was attacked by 6 Shan people, very vicious attack. He was cut with machetes. But eventually he told me that it was a Rohingya man who had ordered the attack because of money, business problems. So the informality of the economy, in a sense, has the potential of dissolving common ethnic affiliations. And in this paper and presentation, I've also argued that one way in which people can visualize inter-ethnic relationships and conflicts, alliances, is through the use of non-human agents such as dogs and fighting cocks. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for sharing your very interesting work with us, and also expanding our cognition of the border beyond just the Thai-Burma border, but also, yeah, realizing that I'm thinking how unacknowledged or underreported other areas of the Burma border is, especially here in Thailand. But yeah, maybe that gives some mock idea for the next volume to curate. So moving on, I would like to introduce Nontawat, who is a documentary filmmaker based in Bangkok, and he has produced a couple of full-length feature documentaries, one on part of the Burma border, or part of the Thai-Burma border that borders with Karen State, south of where we are now. But we unfortunately don't have time to watch that feature-length documentary today. But he also has produced a couple years ago a short documentary about Shan migrants living in Bangkok that he's going to present with us today.
Hi. I'm interested in about the people and the space and people who live around the space, have cross culture and history, and then that's why I'm interested in focusing the border. And my first feature range I shooting at the border between Thailand and Cambodia about the conflict with Pravihia temples. And my second feature range documentary I shooting at the border between Thailand and Myanmar, and I shooting the current people who live in the deep woods. That people had a problem with the mineral factory that put that the river that they live around the river that contaminated with the leads by the mineral factories. And for this one, I'm looking for research about alien nations who move to live and survive in another places. And then it's related with my new projects because now I'm research about the Shan people, because I shooting this film 4 years ago, and I have my friends after my shooting these films, and that my friend, he is a Shan people, and I a friend with him on Facebook, and I talk with him so many times. And then after Burma just have an elections, I saw his picture on Facebook. He go back to his hometown, and he is going to be a soldier. And I'm so interested why he not to live in Bangkok anymore, and why he go back to his hometown to a soldier. And I show you the pictures. When I saw his picture, I asked him can I follow you for shooting a documentary at your hometown, because I want to know what happens after Burma have an elections. And he said he has to ask his uncle. His uncle is a leader of SSA, for fight with the Burma soldier. And he said after an election they still have a war, still fight together. And when he asked his uncle said it's okay, but I have to go to that place for teach his soldier, for make a documentary for propaganda for his crew. And then I just went there for research. And this film I'm gonna show you that 4 years ago they delayed with my new projects. But this film I'm shooting in Bangkok about Shan people who live in Bangkok. Okay, let's see. It's around 20 minutes. Thanks.
Thank you. So we are going to start the discussion and question and answer section now. First, I'd like to start by asking a question to Nontawat. And so the purpose of this film was evidently to foster understanding among Thais about the Shan living in Thailand. Can you describe the distribution of the film and what the reception has been like among Thai audiences?
This film had got funding from Thai PBS. Yeah, that's why the introductions of the main character said like that in the first scenes, because he talked with his radio with Thai community every day, but at that day he's live too, and for the audience of him, like to know the history about the Shan people already. That's why he have to talk like that for to tell the story about Shan history to my audience in the first scenes. Understand, right?
So the DJ's audience for his online radio program, is it primarily Shan migrants, or it's also for Thai people?
For Shan, it's online on Facebook and on his website, and everybody who interesting can like to just click and open for listen it. But for the main audience is Shan people.
And for your film, it was shown on Thai television?
Yes, on Thai PBS, on free TV, and that's.
All right, I have a few other questions that I'm interested in asking the presenters, but before that, I'll open it up to questions from our guests. Any questions for Nontawat, myself, Henrik, Duang Kamon, or Busarin? Not at all. Yes.
Do you plan to make the length version, long version, or?
Just this version, because like it's a lot on television, just only 20 minutes. Doesn't do. Or for the long versions. Okay. For my new projects, that I told everybody before I show these films. I'm planning to make, now we're on the research process about Shan people, and I'm gonna make in like a feature range that I'm gonna shooting maybe next month in Third Thai, Third Thai, in Chiang Mai, and that place and the mountain over the Third Thai, it have a lot of soldiers over there, and very nationalist, how I say, like really hate Burma, really hate Aung San Suu Kyi, and I heard about them like after election, 18 district or something like have agreement for stop fighting with Burma, but that area still they not sign contracts about stop shooting, and they still have like a lot of people like who everyone is a man born like have to be a soldier like that, and I really want to know that's why about their attitudes, about their history, and that's why they totally hate Burma. I just asked about them like 18 district just signed a contract with Burma, but after signing a contract, everything is still the same. It's just like for to show to the international like something better, but they say like Aung San Suu Kyi totally don't care about them. They just
And that will be a longer.
I'm planning to finish around 90 minutes. I will stay with them maybe first like 1 month, and then back to Bangkok holiday, and then back again if it's not enough for my friends.
Yeah, I have a question for you.
Here.
Yes. Yeah, perhaps I just want to see if I understood it correctly when you talk about the different isms, the utilitarianism, liberalism, and so on. That was ideologies guiding, possibly guiding social policy in Thailand, right? Or-
Yeah, the different ideologies are really philosophies about ways to organize societies and economies to bring about the most benefit and the most justice. And I'm using them, to interpret Thai policy towards migrants.
Okay, good. So I guess my question is, is there any, because I mean all these isms are Western isms, right? I mean, have a root in Western philosophy, political thinking, and so on, right? So I wonder if there are any kind of specifically Thai, ism or whatever. I'm just thinking like in the Chinese case, if we think about social policy, we would also think about Confucianism, right? So I wonder what is the Thai? Is there any particular Thai ideology that is used or can be used in this context?
Yeah, that's definitely a great question, and it's something that was outside of the scope of my paper. So I can't answer your question directly, but that would be definitely something to explore for future work. As I mentioned at the beginning, I wrote this as a paper for my university in the U.S. And I wasn't thinking about it in terms of a Thai audience or even, primarily presenting it here. But I think that would be an important area to expand it into.
Do you think that Buddhism could be?
I think, now I wish that I hope that I have the opportunity to expand it and look at other ideologies and frameworks for organizing societies. Yes.
Like to ask question. I found your entitled thesis that you show very interesting and something that contrasts to what I'm working on too, because I'm looking at the conversion goals. I'd like to hear from you more about the relationship between mobilities and certain type of commodities that you bring mobility. That you mentioned that somehow mobility can help facilitate trade, and the other way around, I would see that the trade also bring people to be more, mobile and kind of move more like force of the trade. And I would like to hear more about the regulations in order to shape the mobility patterns or the trade at that border, the Myanmar and China border. Because I didn't see, maybe you mentioned it in other chapters, but the role of regulation to kind of stop or control the mobility and at the same time, the regulation that also control or manage or stop or halt the trade that in relation to mobility.
Did you mean regulation? Regulations guiding mobility?
You mentioned about the relationship between mobility and trade.
So regulations like the policies or function of the border, you can say. So, and maybe the casinos are also. So obviously, I think the formal policy, which is one of them, is the import tax of jade of around 35% of its estimated value. In this, in the stone that I showed you, $100 million stone, that's a lot of import tax. So you would do a lot to avoid paying that import tax, including various strategies, informal accounting of private officers, or of hiring someone who has connection with the officers to smuggling through another area and so on. So of course I guess the policy and the informal economy are very much related. I don't know if that was your question. Was that your question?
Compared to my cases and then
Yeah, but definitely it's maybe there are many similarities, because it also is mobility is kind of a key word, and it's I try to say also it's very unevenly distributed, right? Because among the Han Chinese, they just take a car and they drive to Mandalay, they buy a piece of jade and they go back to really maybe to Kunming and they sell it and they earn some money like that.
that's what I see, that all the cases seem to be successful. Are there any
But Rohingya can't do that, just, because if they get caught in one of the police guards, they are illegal, and they are illegally, if they, get caught in Lhasa, for instance, then they are not supposed to travel outside their villages. So then they are guilty of a crime, which is, so in that sense, mobility is also stratified, it's also a stratifying factor in this inter-ethnic landscape, and increasingly in my case the Han Chinese who come from the east coast like Shanghai or Zhejiang or Guangdong, they come with a lot of money, and with the money you also have access to bigger stones which give a bigger profit and so on. And this is also a kind of mobility, I think, economic mobility.
Yes.
I have a question to you. Okay.
I hope I can answer it better.
Sorry. Why do we call them those from China state displaced persons from refugees? But as you say, economic migrants in terms of the use. But we all know that many of them left the country because of the war. But then they got to turn themselves to become migrant workers in Thailand without assistance from ASEAN or some NGOs they do really help those from China state. But talking about transformation from a person fleeing war from one place, becoming economic migrants. It's kind of like something in between. Talking about refugees, before you get a chance to relocate, you got to go through a lot of trainings, adjustment to the new society. I kind of wonder how the process of transformation was kind of like functions for the case of those from China State. It is pretty interesting because when you go to farm, for example, like lately a lot of young kids, they came to farm because of the war, and then they stay in the daycare center in the district. Nighttime they stay with their relatives who work in Chiang Mai. There's no kind of like formal, assistance or kind of like a structural, assistance to take care of these kids, for example. So when they grow up, they got to learn by themselves to become workers, to make a living in any places in Chiang Mai or Myanmar. That is the question about transformation. Second thing is looking at the case of those refugees in provinces and so on, for example. They have freedom to work is pretty limited compared to those from China state. But then many people refugee status behind. So looking at two cases, looking to the future, what those refugees in Thai province will learn from Shan, economic migrants who seem to have more freedom in that way, even though they kind of lack of protection or assistance as a, those who are displaced because of war.
I think that it's better for me to sort of respond to some of the points you raised rather than try to answer the questions. In terms of this transformation period or space from sort of being a newly arrived refugee or migrant to becoming fully integrated as an economic migrant, yeah, that's an interesting space. I'm in a strange position now where I'm sort of offering my interpretation of what might be going on for a person in such a space. I can't speak for them, for anyone in that condition. But what I have noticed from the Shan that I've worked with in Chiang Mai and that I've come to know is that there, in general, is a lack of the vocabulary to identify themselves one way or the other. And often this ties into a lack of awareness about routes to access assistance or to apply for assistance or seek justice for wrongs being done. There's also this, what I've seen is a feeling that it's not going to do any good to identify myself as someone fleeing from war. Often if you talk to, this also goes to gaining trust and the need to really spend time with somebody in order to fully understand their story and their thoughts, their thought process, is commonly if you casually ask a Shan person in Chiang Mai, why did you leave Shan State and come to Thailand? 9 times out of 10, the answer that I believe that you'll receive is, I came here to work, I came here to make money. And I think that also ties into Henrik's question, and in terms of Buddhist philosophy, there's a sense of, I don't want to trouble you with my sad story, and there's not going to be any benefit in making you feel depressed or in complaining about my lot in life. And so it's much easier to just explain what I think you might understand and what I think will make you less comfortable by saying I'm here to work, rather than going into a longer explanation about the situation in my village, which I expect is completely foreign to you. But yeah, this is all just from an outsider's perspective. So in general, a lack of consciousness about these categories or these definitions, and also what benefit could they be to me by adopting this identity or embodying this identity more fully. And your second point that you raised about the ways that refugees in Thak or in refugee camps would consider the lives of economic migrants in Chiang Mai as possibly being more free, having more liberty to travel and to work. Yeah, that raises an interesting point of how much self-determination and informed self-determination are those who are in the refugee camp. How much were they allowed when they made a decision or were encouraged or were brought to the UNHCR, or by family members or community members to go through the process of entering into the refugee camps, and were they fully aware of the rights and the liberties that they would be giving up? So that's what I'm thinking. I just, not to put her on the spot, but Sulu lived and worked for many years in Massachusetts. She's in Chiang Mai and Burmese migrants or refugees in Massachusetts and Thak.
I think people in Chiang Mai, they live in Shan State and their border and Chiang Mai, Thailand border is close. That's why people from Shan State came to Chiang Mai. But in Mesao area, the people from Paku and people from Delta area and different area, so most are Burman. and also from Karen and Mon. The people came from this area. Another question is,
Does it seem like there's a difference in terms of freedom to work or freedom to move around or freedom to avoid, harassment from Thai
I
authorities?
think the same. The same. The thing is, people in Mesa, they are not allowed to move from Mesa to other area. So some people, they just have passport, like not the international passport. So this passport allow them only to stay in Mesa area, not allowed to move any other area. So they just, usually they work in the factory or some shop. Yeah. And
Can I ask you, do you feel, comparing the life for a migrant from Burma in Masok with in Chiang Mai, do you feel that it's less of a stratified community between the Thais and migrants in Chiang Mai than in Masok? Is it easier for you, in other words, to sort of assimilate and go about your life without labeling yourself or identifying as a member of a migrant community in Chiang Mai than in Masok?
I think in Mesa, the majority of people is Burmese. The just less population is Thai people, so it is like little Burma in Mesa. Yeah, but in Chiang Mai, I think the majority is it Thai or is it Shan? But I heard some people said the majority of people is Shan people. But the thing is, for Burmese people, it is if they cannot speak English or Thai, it would be very, very hard to communicate people in Chiang Mai. So the communication is very important for everything. So when they migrate in other area, that's what I think. Yeah.
Okay, so this is sort of more of a conversation than answering your questions.
Yeah.
It's interesting to get different perspectives. And I can share with you, going back to Nontawat's film, on this past week we showed Nontawat's documentary to a group of about 30 Shan students here in Chiang Mai at Burma Study Center, all whether we can call them unrecognized refugees or migrants, but all Shan. And we had, after watching the film with the students, we had a discussion comparing life in Chiang Mai for a Shan migrant compared to in Bangkok. And I was really interested in hearing from the students whether the film made them interested to live in Bangkok. It looked like, to me when I watched the film, it looks like there's opportunities and conditions that are more comfortable in Bangkok than in Chiang Mai for Shan migrants. In terms of just the work opportunities that we saw in the film, which I know is very, maybe not representative, but also the living conditions and the office conditions. But actually the students, none of the students said that they would prefer or that they were inspired to try living in Bangkok. And their main reason is that they felt that Bangkok is so huge that Shan people are just about invisible in Bangkok, and that it would be really difficult to find community, whereas in Chiang Mai they feel like that their community is stronger, that it's easier. There's many opportunities of locations to congregate and to express their Shan identity, and they knew that they could possibly earn more money or have more comfortable living conditions in Bangkok, but they felt it was the right choice for them to be in Chiang Mai. So that's sort of another perspective on the question. Is there any final question or last point that anybody would like to make, or any comments? Okay, so we are over time. I would like to continue the conversation. One question that I would like to know more about is the process of earning trust and meeting the informants, especially the work of Duong Kamon and Busari and Henrik, the process of gaining trust, and also whether or not there is a level of sort of suspicion about outside researchers' intentions. But that is something that we'll discuss at a future time. Samak is here. He wanted me to say this for him, but he would like to offer a free copy of the book for everybody who attended the session today. So, yeah. As you know, the purpose of the book is not to earn money. All of the contributors, we happily donated our work and are not getting any payment. We appreciate the opportunity of being able to share our work with you and to increase understanding and awareness about some of these issues. So we hope that you'll enjoy the book and share it with others if possible, and let us know your opinions and feedback. And so I'll bring this to a close, but if anybody would like to ask any questions to any of the presenters or Samak individually, we'll all be here for a little while. So thank you very much and hope to see you again in the future.